Welcome to The Dental Brief, the podcast that delivers actionable insights and expert strategies to help dental professionals like you grow, lead, and succeed. I'm your host, Patrick Shavasty, the president of Omni Premier Marketing. Every week at The Dental Brief, we bring you real conversations from expert speakers that offer expert advice and quick tips that make a real difference in practices nationwide. Whether you're a general dentist or run a multi-location practice, we've got you covered with content that's designed to help you attract more patients, to streamline your operations, reduce headaches in managing your practice, and increase your profitability. If you're ready to elevate your practice, be sure to subscribe, hit the notifications bell, and let's dive into today's episode of The Dental Brief. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Dental Brief. Today's going to be a great episode. I've got a dentist sharing. I always appreciate that. This one happens to be a neighbor over in Utah. I'm here in Colorado. Dr. LeMone, go ahead and say hello to everyone.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Glad to have you here. I'm going to start where we always start. How'd you become a dentist? What made you want to get into dentistry?
Yeah, it was a good friend back in college. He talked me into taking the DAT, of which I didn't do so hot on the first time, but the second time I did okay enough to get in. So influence of a good friend.
Okay. So practicing dentistry, how long did you practice for?
I've been practicing for about 25 years. I still practice clinically a couple days a week. So I'm in the chair, understand the battles that dentists go through.
Yeah, so that's quite a bit of time to be practicing, a couple of days a week. So you must still have some love for actually treating patients, yeah?
Yeah, oh yeah. Dentistry is great in a lot of ways. Obviously, treating patients. I love the business side of dentistry, so that's kind of why I started Profit Socket. But I do love caring for people.
Yeah, so let's talk about, one of the questions we always ask on the show is, what are some challenges that dentists are facing? The website, by the way, is profitsocket.ai. I think you can also get there through theprofitsocket.com. Let me ask you a question. What was a big problem, something that was nagging at you while you were practicing, full-time practicing, that made you say, hey, there's a need for this service or this product out here that led to Profit Socket?
Yeah, it's the same problem that everyone faces. We've got rising costs associated with providing dental services and treatment, and we have stagnant insurance reimbursement rates, right? So it's creating a pinch on the profit for dentists that have to work with insurance.
So tell me the solution. What's Profit Socket do and how does it help?
So what we do is we're a payer and profit analytics company, and we push 4 key profit margin drivers. So the first one is we analyze your payer mix. Payer mix meaning the different types of insurance companies that you've chosen to contract with. We know that there's some good ones out there. We know there's some bad ones out there. And you're going to kind of want to know how they're inundating your practice and how many of those patients are coming in. The second thing we look at procedure level profitability. So some procedures are just downright more profitable than others. We all know that some might be more productive, but are they truly more profitable is a good question. Right. The next thing we look at is provider performance, meaning if you have multiple associates, they all diagnose differently. Some providers are more profitable than others. Sure. And the last thing we look at is practice expenses, and practice expenses can vary greatly. We divide them into 2 major buckets. The first is procedure level expenses, and the second is operational level expenses.
It's absolutely fascinating. Let's kind of dive into some areas a little bit. Let's talk about treatments that you see consistently that are costing dentists a lot more than they think that they're making. So one of the types of phone calls that we often get is somebody who, says, hey, I want to get into sleep apnea. I took some course. It's going to be really profitable. But they never really ever do enough cases to get really fast at it or to get efficient and effective with it. So it kind of costs them. What are some types of things that you see that actually cost more than they help?
Yeah, so one of the biggest costs in the practice, aside from labor, has to be chair time. And so what we do is we allocate chair time costs down to a procedural level. So you're going to know how much chair time costs is associated with the longer procedures, such as class 2 composites, dentures, and denture adjustments. And you'll find that those type of procedures aren't quite as profitable. One interesting thing is, out of all the offices that we currently service, the hygiene department is actually unprofitable if they are not doing any diagnostic procedures, such as taking x-rays, panels, and so forth, because chair time is so expensive and prophy rates have declined significantly.
Yeah. So what's a pretty consistent thing that you see in practices all the time, that when they look at that data, when they look at what they've been doing, the amount of work, time, effort they've been putting into it, that helps them change What kind of changes do you see practices making after working with you?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I think some of the biggest changes come in the payer mix, which you've talked to already. And what they end up doing is they end up dropping the insurances that actually are hurting them. We
Yep.
identify insurances where if you drop them, you will actually make more money. You'll actually make more profit. You won't make more production, but you will make more profit. And
Sure.
so that's the number one thing is we can identify the 2 or 3 insurances that are actually hurting you, and you can immediately drop those. We also let you know how much chair time is going to open up once you drop them, and then you can fill that chair time with higher profit procedures.
Yep, makes sense to me. And this is something that I see all the time where there's a lot of dentists really want to go fee for service because they've heard about all the benefits of doing so, but not every single practice should go fee for service, right?
No, in fact, I just did an analysis before this podcast for a practice, and we looked at what it would be if they dropped the highest profit insurance company. And
Yeah.
they were doing an average of 750 procedures a month with that insurance company. If they drop it under their new payer mix, they actually have to do 844 procedures to make up for that insurance if they were to lose it.
Significant, right? I mean, that's a big difference.
You can imagine how much work that is. No one wants to do that.
Yeah, that's quite a bit. And I mean, I think there's even some areas of the country, depending on where practices are at, what's going on for adults, even Medicaid practices can be incredibly profitable, right?
Yeah, as I said, a lot of the profitability is going to boil down to some of your key expenses, namely your chair time and your labor, which are your 2 highest. But we
Yep.
do something very, very unique is we separate profit out on a operational basis and on a procedure level basis. When you separate out your expenses on a procedure level basis, you put all payers on equal ground so you know what kind of profit you're getting from the payers. And then after that, you compare that to your operational expenses evenly across those payers.
Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. So having this data and actually having some help analyzing this data can be a game changer for a practice. What does engaging with Profit Socket look like? What does that look like for a practice?
So if someone wants to sign up for Profit Socket, it's actually a very easy process. You sign up for a demo. After a demo, we get 3 in-office specialists that help us connect automatically to your practice management system as well as your QuickBooks. That allows us to merge that information and put it onto our platform. And then from that point, the office has a few onboarding and setup steps. And after that, you're off and running.
That's simple.
Yep.
And are you working with most of the practice management software, at least the big 5?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Working with the big 5 and work with QuickBooks.
Okay. And then after it's up and running, kind of what are the next steps from there?
After you're up and running, we have an onboarding process and a small coaching on how to use the platform, which allows people to look for and identify summaries and how to use the tools. We have some very specific tools. We have calculators, auditors, and estimators, things that you can use when you identify or you want to start to make changes in your practice. But we teach you how to use those, and then you're off and running.
And so when it comes to practice growth, I mean, one of the, it says on your website, it says the average practice saves $210,000 per year. That would also mean could increase profits $210,000 per year. Does that seem pretty accurate?
Yeah, so if you think about a practice that's doing, $1.2 million, off the very top, you probably have 34 to 36% of adjustments. So if you're able to take that to 19%, you've already made up a couple $100,000. If you're able to regulate your costs and understand which insurance codes are losing you money and which ones you're gaining on, that's going to save you quite a bit. And then at the end, as I said, if you can tailor your operational expenses, meaning you know where your marketing spend is, meaning you know what your administrative spend is, you're avoiding any of those unnecessary office hazards like floods and fires and things that you have to pay for. You will see an increase in $210,000. The second thing is in order for a practice nowadays to remain viable in terms of practice value, it's very important that practices have at least 15% profit margin at the end, and that's after paying an operating dentist.
So in other words, you got to count what your salary would be if you weren't in there as the technician, right?
Exactly. And we do add that in as a procedure level expense because you have to account for paying a doctor. If not, you don't appeal to a young buyer that needs to make a bank loan payment or a private equity group that may want to acquire you. There has to be profit after paying an operating dentist.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question as far as, and this is, I think this is going to be an educated guess. Maybe you actually have kept these stats. When you go to an event, when you're doing in a speaking event, when you're, teaching CEO, whatever it may be, and you start talking to the dentist about their numbers, what percentage of dentists actually know their numbers? If you had a guess.
Very few. I'd say
Yeah.
maybe 5%. But
Yeah.
payer analytics is something that I think needs more attention. Payer and profit analytics specifically needs more attention because up until this point, most dentists have focused on one thing, and that's production. But production doesn't tell the whole story. We need to start looking more about how much profit is generated and the effects of how we use that profit. Are we spending it to buy equipment, or are we giving it to our associate? We hire an associate and half our profit goes to pay him. So it's very important to look at more than just production. We've got to start looking at something like profit. And I think that will be kind of a game changer in the next few years in our dental field.
Yep. So for those listeners who want to check it out, that want to learn more, that want to know your numbers and want to take a deep dive, go to profitsocket.ai, top right corner of the screen, click the get a demo button. It's that easy to learn more and to get on the right track. Dr. LeMone, thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate you sharing with us.
Thank you, Patrick. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Dental Brief. If you found it helpful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share it with a colleague who could benefit. We're here to help dental professionals like you stay ahead of the curve, one brief episode at a time. You can find more episodes and resources at thedentalbrief.com. You can also join the Growth Minded Dentist community on Facebook. Links are in the description. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and thanks for being part of the Dental Brief community.